Hello there and welcome back to Adam's Fam Anime. I am John, and in today's video I'm going to be discussing Dragon Ball Super chapter 77, which is titled Bardock, Father of Goku. And we can start this off by stating that the last chapter did a pretty good job throwing up flares to signify that there was going to be a flashback incoming. However, with this chapter in particular, we actually get a flashback within a flashback, but ultimately this is still one of my favorite chapters from Dragon Ball Super in quite some time. In any case, the chapter starts off directly into the flashback where it shows us a handful of panels that the Ceruleans and the Namekians actually coexisted without too many issues. This is even summed up by showing us a few panels of the Namekians getting water and the Ceruleans getting fruit from each other. However, the good times are short-lived in this chapter, as by page 2 we see some of Frieza's disc or saucer shaped ships coming in front of the full moon, and then the very next page we see that there are Saiyan pods crash landing as well. And it isn't long before we get to see the Saiyan, or the Great Ape Saiyans, wrecking shop when it comes to the planet Cereal, and they actually get pretty dark in the sense that they're killing people. And I gotta say, in terms of story, it is a surprisingly dark turn for the Dragon Ball Super series. I mean, there is one page in particular where it shows that some of Frieza's men, while the Saiyans are wreaking havoc, are gathering up all the Namekians to essentially execute them in a huddled up group that would essentially make it a mass grave. Shortly after, we see Minato weakly sliding up to the group of bodies that are laying there, and what appears to be the elder Namekian, the largest one of the group, hands over the Dragon Balls. Now, narratively, this should either pose some questions or possibly even be a retcon, because I'm pretty sure that once the creator of the Dragon Balls dies, the Dragon Balls themselves have to disappear. So it's possible, I suppose, that Minato is the creator of the Dragon Balls, but the Elder himself was the one hanging on to him. This does raise some questions for the Namekians for me in general, but I'll bring those questions up toward the end of the video in the discussion portion. Alright, now moving on, we get to see Bardock for the first time in this chapter in his Great Ape form. And while it is clear that his Saiyan compatriots are actually wrecking everything, we don't actually see Bardock engaging in any destruction. And while hanging off of a building, he does notice Granola and his mother. So it did a good job setting this up for us to see a scene that we had actually already saw in a flashback for Granola in a previous chapter. However, before we get any dialogue or any interaction between Bardock, Granola, and his mother, we see that a Cerulean named Flake is using his power to destroy the moon, which he does successfully do. And it is then at this point that another Saiyan pops up behind him and tells him that despite getting them out of their Great Ape forms, that they're pretty much still effed. And correct me if I'm wrong here, maybe I'm just stereotyping Saiyans in general, but this character actually does look a lot like Nappa. So if this is Nappa, then maybe it's a nice little callback to an older character, but ultimately can't have too much narrative difference because Nappa is extra dead. Anyways, after a short moment in the limelight, this Flake character is murdered hastily by the Nappa lookalike. And after that, we get the manga reveal of Bardock in his human form. Now, Granola's mother points her fingers at him and shoots a beam that shoots off a bit of his armor. And when she does this, she makes a pose that triggers the flashback within a flashback that we see for Bardock. And this setup is beautifully done by showing us two panels of Goku's mother and Granola's mother holding the same pose, which is pointing their fingers at Bardock. And the first page of this flashback within a flashback does manage to hit us with quite a few nostalgic nuggets. We do get a quick callback to the bubbly personality of Jine, Goku's mom, and then we get to see a panel of Raditz playing outside with two unnamed Saiyans as well. And of course we get to see baby Goku in one of those incubators. Now that flashback within a flashback is wrapped up when we see that Bardock has named Goku, much to Jine's approval and her affectionate acceptance of his name. And unfortunately, this is what brings Bardock out of his headspace for that flashback, as we see that it kind of was really just showing us that he was thinking of his family, or at the very least, Granola and his mother reminded him of his wife and son. And at that point, another Saiyan named Leek, who appears to be Bardock's subordinate of some sort, he warns Bardock that Frieza's on his way and it's about time for them to bang out. But Bardock tells him that he's going to hang around to check for survivors. So it looks like Bardock has reached some kind of determination to hide Granola and his mother, and when he does, he picks up a scouter to try to find any survivors who might be hiding out. And what he finds is Minato, who almost instantly attacks him when he walks through the door. But things seem to simmer down once Minato realizes that he's bringing two survivors, in particular, two Ceruleans. And after Bardock wishes them the best, he essentially tries to head for the door before dropping his name. And then we get a brief intermission from that flashback, and then we return to the present to show us Granola's reaction to learning that he had been saved by a Saiyan. And even more so by learning that Goku, or Kakarot, is that Saiyan's son. And at first I was questioning a little bit how Vegeta would know that Bardock was Goku's father. But if Raditz is his brother and Vegeta was in contact with Raditz after all the Saiyans were destroyed, then it does make sense as to Vegeta knowing Raditz's entire family at least. So in any case, after getting back to the flashback, we see that Manito is attempting to heal Bardock before he heads out, which manages to stall him long enough for the Heater clan to show up and to exposition just about everything we know already. And this is referring to the way they practice their business and how they are subservient to Frieza and how they intend on overthrowing Frieza. Now, Bardock seems to overhear this just before Granola wakes up and blows everyone's cover. Manito responds by knocking Granola unconscious with some kind of technique, which doesn't appear to harm him. But once the Heaters show up to interrogate Bardock as to who he is and who the others are, Bardock tries to dance around actually needing to kill anyone, so he uses the Namekians' healing ability as a reason for them to interrogate him or keep them alive longer. Now, while he is believed, he didn't leave any reason open for them to save Granola's mother or to keep her alive. So the leader of the Heater clan, Alec, actually put a bullet straight through her chest. And this is yet again another dark moment for this flashback. Anyways, after she eats that bullet, we see that Bardock is getting angry, and then we get a nice call back to Goku's Super Saiyan transformation, all the way back when he was fighting Frieza. In any case, he can't really keep his cool, so he subsequently attacks the Heater clan when we see that Gas actually uses some kind of force field or barrier to actually protect everyone in a similar fashion to Android 17. However, once that attack is properly deflected, a bunch of dust is kicked up and Bardock uses that opportunity to get everyone out of there. Now, when it comes to saving Granola's mother, Manito actually proves that Dende is a gifted healer, since Manito mentioned earlier in the chapter that he even struggled with Bardock's scratch on his arm. So it's implied that she dies during this chapter. However, before we can actually confirm her death, we see that the Heater clan has resolved to have everyone involved in that situation murdered, since they don't want the whole thing about overthrowing Frieza getting out. Now, we don't see Bardock and them running away, but we do see that Gas is intent on catching them by himself. Now, we don't get to see this fight, unfortunately, but I think we do know the outcome based on the dialogue, which shows that Heater says that fighting that Saiyan, which I'm assuming is speaking about Bardock, it was a disgrace to himself. And to really wrap up the chapter, we also see that they have one Dragon Ball and on their way to the second. Alright, now that the recap of the chapter is done, we get on with the ratings portion of the chapter, and we always start with the artwork. So in terms of the artwork, I'm going to go ahead and give this chapter a 9. I mean, overall, it was a beautiful chapter. A lot of well-drawn panels with the Great Apes, the Frieza Army, Bardock, and the Ceruleans and the Namekians. And even though they could have phoned it in with the Heater clan, since they look about the same age, they could have looked exactly the same in terms of design. But there are some slight differences that they took for each character to show us that that jump in time and the changes for those characters in particular. So I just think there was some really good art choices and some really beautiful panels, just nothing that stood out as being mind-blowing or really wowing me. Alright, now moving on to the story, I'm going to go ahead and give this a 9 as well. It was really good. I do like the flashback within a flashback. It seemed like it was nearly perfectly set up. However, I just gotta say that the chapter's pacing didn't really seem super comfortable. Now, this very well could be that they felt the necessity to work the Heater clan and some of the present moments in because they don't want to spend an entire chapter in a flashback and then make us wait another month just so we can conclude the story that we left off with a whole 30 days ago. And also, when it comes to the story, we learned things about and from the Heater clan that we already knew, so it seemed like that could have just been a few panels that could have been dedicated to a fight, or a few more panels, more interactions with Bardock and his family. So in regards to that story, I think 9 is more than fair. Alright, now last but not least is the hype for this month's chapter, and that's also going to be a 9. I mean, ultimately, in terms of hype, I'm sure it'll translate to being much better once we get to see it in an anime form, if we get to see it in an anime form. But we do get to see the great apes go crazy. We get to see Bardock, we get to see Goku's mom, we get to see baby Goku, we get to see Raditz. There is just a whole lot of nostalgic callbacks to any longtime Dragon Ball fan. But again, it gets a 9 rather than a 10 because there really are no big OMG moments or any real big fights or conflicts that we got to enjoy. So 9 it is. Alright, so now that we have the art, the story, and the hype all at 9s, that leaves our average for this chapter being a 9. It was an amazing chapter. I really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I think it was awesome that we finally get to see a canon manga iteration of a character beloved like Bardock. Now, I know that the whole time traveling slash seeing into the future aspect of Bardock isn't canon. I mean, it's still something they probably could work into that character, but I'm really glad they didn't take that route for this whole situation here. And I gotta say, narration-wise, they made a really good choice going into this flashback to kind of die down from the hype behind the fights that we've been seeing and the new forms that we've been seeing with Granola and Vegeta. I mean, this is a great way to taper things down and to finally get some dialogue going between the characters. And although it is still regurgitated information, I do like how they're bringing it up again exactly who the villains of this series is going to be. Or I should say the villains of this arc. But it also shows us that there is going to be a conflict brewing probably between Gas and Goku. So all in all, it was a great chapter and very worthy of a 9. Alright, well now is the time that we get on with the discussion portion of the video, and I do have a few bones to pick with this chapter. First and foremost is going to be the Namekians and what in the world they are doing out on planet Cereal. Now we know that it is implied that they came from another realm entirely, but there still is the question as to how they are so spread out and not centralized on one planet like Namek. And then on top of that, we see that Bardock recognizes them as a Namekian, and also back in the Saiyan saga, the Saiyans also seem to recognize Piccolo as being Namekian. So I think there's a lot of lore and a lot of potential for them to explore the Namekian background, as well as their relation to whatever universes they seem to be present in, and also the Super Dragon Balls. And then with them being recognized as the Demon Clan in early Dragon Ball, it's entirely possible that this other realm could lead to things like the Demon Realm or possibly another unexplored aspect of the Dragon Ball world. And if you guys have any thoughts on the Namekians, let me know in the comment section down below. But for now, we're going to move on to Bardock, and from what we can understand, the man has hands. Now, even though we don't get a direct confirmation, it seems to be implied by the end of the chapter that he lost a fight against Bardock. And if the Broly movie truly is canon, then that would imply that Bardock did survive his encounter with the Heater Clan. And it might even be that Gas got defeated fairly easily if Bardock was able to do so without revealing his identity. Also, I'd like to know if Bardock did survive, if the whole destruction of the Saiyans thing happened shortly after, or if it's the case that Bardock decided not to snitch on the Heater Clan, or if he did and maybe got some preferential treatment. Well, whatever the case is, it does leave some room for a little more storytelling in regards to Bardock's path until, the day of his death. And I gotta say, in regards to Bardock, that I did enjoy the whole flashback within a flashback concept. It was nice seeing Goku and Raditz at their young ages. And in regards to Raditz being a young kid, it was pretty nice seeing him play around and not being so serious or so evil, quote unquote. Now, it should be interesting to see what dialogue pops up between Goku and Vegeta in regards to Vegeta's knowledge of his family, but it is entirely possible that Raditz may not have been such a hardened warrior, or at the very least not until a good long while after their planet was destroyed. I mean, it would have to be apparent that Bardock had been aware where his brother was sent, but why did they wait so long until Goku was an adult for them to show up and try to recruit him? I mean, I think it's entirely possible that maybe his time with Vegeta and Nappa may have slowly eroded his desire to protect his brother from the Saiyan lifestyle and from the clutches of Frieza. And that might just be a little bit of a wishful narrative storytelling desire of my own. But if Toriyama and Toyotaro decided to go back and retroactively give Raditz, a character who's been dead in the series for over 30 years, if they were to go back and give him a little more credit as to being a good brother for at least a short period of time, that might be a nice little touch, considering that Toyotaro had a little bit of a fan fiction thing going on with Raditz before he officially became a artist for Dragon Ball. And the final point of discussion for this month's chapter is going to be the Heater clan and where this might go. I feel like I may have mentioned in a prior video that I believe that Gas is ultimately going to be the big bad of this arc. Now, it's entirely possible that maybe I just had these conversations with my brothers and maybe I thought that I brought it up in a video, but in either case, this is something I've kind of had a feeling about for a while. And this is mainly because of his saltiness after being defeated by Granola, and then him seeing Goku being defeated by Bardock, possibly being defeated by Goku. This could be the reasoning for him to become the strongest in the universe once he acquires that second Dragon Ball. And narrowly, every Dragon Ball arc needs its big bad, and Granola hasn't really fit that bill despite being a good opponent for Vegeta and Goku. But I will say that Granola has always felt like the kind of character who could be added on to the and Friends portion of the Goku and Friends. And then we also have Frieza, who hasn't really been brought into the picture yet, but clearly is involved in all of these storylines. But that's a whole discussion for another day. This video has already gone on long enough. My apologies if I sounded a bit droll or tired in the earlier portion of this video. I was doing that around 2 or 3 in the morning last night, and I just genuinely don't feel like re-recording it, as I have a couple other videos that I want to work on. Anyways, if there's anything about this chapter that you want to talk about or anything that I missed, let me know. I'm always up for some discussion down in the comment section. Also, if you enjoyed this content, please like, share, and subscribe. It would help me out immensely, and I would greatly appreciate it. In any case, my name is John from AF Anime, and I'll see you guys in the next video.